This is the presentation for Topic 1, Building Maintenance Management, and it's a summary and an overview of the subject Building Lifecycle Maintenance. These slides aren't intended to be a replacement for the study guide, but to assist you in understanding the topic. Building maintenance management just doesn't live alone. It's a part of a complete suite of management plans with a facility, building or an asset. As you can see in this diagram, it comprises asset planning, acquisition or capital investment, asset operation, that's where maintenance lives, and the asset disposal. And it's important these plans work and live together to help achieve the objectives and the mission of the business or the organisation that it's actually setting out to use the facility or the building. You can see here there's a fairly complex matrix that we can put together to make those decisions in putting the maintenance plan together and building maintenance process. And you can see along the top there we've got the planning, the disposal, capital investment again. Maintenance, the components of maintenance that we'll be looking at in this subject anyway, facilities and building auditing, ensuring that service level agreements are in place and actually achieve the requirements of the organisation, and that the performance of the maintenance is actually, again, achieving the outcomes and the mission of the organisation or business using the facility. So if we consider the strategic asset management plan and look at it, where it fits in overall in the business, you can see in this diagram here, in the asset management plan, it's all the support plans, the information technology plan, the human resource plan, and there's other plans there as well that actually make up the support plans that allows the business to achieve its objectives, along with the operational plans, which and the operational plans again that's supporting the business model, whether it be a large retail outlet, shopping centre, or large office building, different types of tenancies, different types of functions, that type of thing. So it's very important that all those things come together and the asset, the building, actually performs at its optimum level. So it's the asset manager and the building owner, or the building manager, property manager, that has the responsibility to provide proactive strategies and information that then ensure the building actually performs at this level, and the business can operate and provide the level of service that's required by the occupants and the organisations that are in the building. So if we look at this diagram here, again you can see the asset management plan with below below the asset management plan, again those components of it, again the capital investment plan, the asset maintenance, and the asset disposal strategy, and below those the maintenance and operation issue on those. So those plans all come together to actually help the building perform at its optimum level throughout its whole life cycle, and that's really what those plans are. In the strategic asset management plan, they actually form a plan for every stage of that building throughout its life cycle, and ensure that it's meeting its business objectives and who the tenants and organisations, businesses operating within that building. I think it's here important to understand and actually have the definition of maintenance. You may need to come back and actually reread this at some stage. So I've written it here: all actions necessary for retaining an item or an asset in or restoring it to a condition in which it achieves its original specified performance. And just to remember that it doesn't include cleaning or refurbishment. It's also worthwhile noting here the definition for maintenance costs. I won't read through these, but keep these in mind when we start looking at different types of maintenance as well, not just the planning issues associated with planning maintenance, but also issues associated with corrective and preventative and backlog maintenance, which we'll be talking later in this topic. So the types of maintenance, let's consider them in this diagram here. And this is how they really do fit together in the maintenance plan. I've identified here the three types: preventative, corrective, and backlog. And it's important that you understand the difference of each. The preventative maintenance is really the planned maintenance. It can be programmed, and so we've got a systematic inspection, detection, and prevention. So that's your routine maintenance on things like equipment to do with air conditioning and so forth, and that can be planned ahead. We're also looking at maintenance associated with corrective maintenance. A lot of these actions and associated maintenance is a result of failure or breakdown. They're often tricky to be programmed in, but in some cases they can be. And then the third type of maintenance is backlog maintenance, and this is maintenance really that it's necessary to prevent the further deterioration of the building asset or element, but there's really been no funding or there's been no resources to actually allocate and actually carry this out. I think it's an ideal opportunity with this type of diagram I've placed here to actually see, you can see the maintenance plan, and you can actually see the feeds of those different types of maintenance that I've just discussed, and some of the background tasks or functions that need to go with each one of those. It's very important that the effective maintenance ensures that the capital asset, the capital investment of the asset is preserved, and so you need three of those working together. There's no reason just having a preventative maintenance plan. Fortunately, things will break down, so it's how you will respond, and when you respond, how will that maintain the serviceability and the business objectives still. The backlog, again with backlog maintenance, it's what are those items that really need to be done at the top of the list. If we've got a limited amount of funding, how are we going to approach that, and which one of those backlog items need to be dealt with first. So if we consider giving some type of priority on how we will respond to maintenance, we could look at just like I've got here, a simple 3 priority scale, where priority 1 would be legislative. It could be things associated with air quality issues or cooling towers with Legionnaires. It could be fire protection, those type of things. It could be a priority 2, which might be as simple as a tripping hazard in a walkway, that type of thing. Or a priority 3, a financial planning issue. So that could be something like a failed roofing flashing and those type of things, which it's a long-term problem. It can't be left, and something needs to be planned ahead for. So if you're looking at conducting a building audit and looking at condition assessing and risk assessing certain maintenance, you might look at a 5-point Likert scale here from R1, which is a high risk, and I've identified it here as statutory maintenance. So there might be things associated again with, say, with fire protection. It might be issues associated with asbestos. Could be disability access, those type of things. Right down to a rating of R5. Now, those type of things, it might have, as I said there, no effect on capability of the business or the building, and that might be just areas that really might need just a lick of paint. So it's just a cosmetic thing, and it's not really going to impact on whether customers come to that building, use that building, or whether tenants leave. And it's also actually no one's at harm, or there's no risk to it actually hurting anybody. And just some examples. These are easy on your eye, I suppose. So the statutory maintenance, if you think of it as maintenance that must be carried out to meet a legislative or statutory requirements, and as I've got here a couple of examples with electricity, it might be RCD protection. So where the law now requires RCDs on general purpose electrical and also lighting. It could be access to premises, code compliance, fire protection, asbestos, or PCBs. So that's what we're talking about when we consider statutory maintenance issues. So if we consider a way of actually showing graphically backlog maintenance, I've put together a very simple graph here. So we can see the amount of spend dollars in a building where the general maintenance, which is a combination of your corrective and your routine preventative maintenance here in the blue, that's shown. All those components of maintenance which build up, legislative, larger scale maintenance projects which can't be done that year, can't be resourced. They're shown there in the maroon part of the graph, and as you can see, it slowly builds up. This demonstrates a fairly effective backlog maintenance program, though. Having said that, because you can see it's quite small, the area of backlog maintenance at the beginning, maybe $10 million. It got quite extensive halfway through the graph, and then they've been able to manage it and bring it down and achieve some control there too. How to represent the backlog maintenance over a number of years. This is a simple way of dividing up the different types of maintenance and its impact, and how to report. And that's going to be very important in any building. So if we're reporting the maintenance on an annual basis, it might look something like this. So with backlog maintenance, we can see here that there's a total backlog maintenance in 2011 for this particular building of $75 million, or this portfolio of buildings. And out of that, then it's broken up into general backlog maintenance of $16 million, backlog refurbishment, so that's got a statutory component to it. So that might be areas which have disability access, or certain types of facility that have to meet a requirement, maybe workshops or laboratories, those type of things. As well as non-statutory refurbishment too, so rooms that really do need to be brought up to speed. It might be residential rooms, it might be accommodation, it might be foyers, those type of things. And last not least, access works too. So where we've got a certain amount of legislative issues that are difficult with buildings too, because over time you'll find that legislative components actually change. Fire will change, things will have to be replaced on a regular basis. Things such as untagged fire doors or tagged fire doors, or different types of cabinets, requirements with landings, with lift cars, with access and lighting and those type of things. So if they're not funding there and then, well, then they need to be done in the following year. So it becomes a backlog straight away. So if we take a look at maintenance, we can divide it into like the building structure and also the services. And looking at the services, it's interesting to note that probably 80% of all preventative maintenance is in redecoration. So really, in design, once we start considering life cycle, there's a real need to consider what type of materials, where they're going to be placed, and how long a building or a part of a building would be out of service as a result of having maintenance done on some of the fabric or the internal redecoration, and you've got to reflect then on the type of building this might be. It could be hospitals, prisons, hotels, for income and business, or just for community need. So, as I said, we can look at then the decisions that need to be made in the design, such as windows and doors, why aluminium is so good, to consider keeping jointing to a minimum. And overall, the external envelope of the building, which is your roof, your external walls, windows, doors, it's most important that these are easy to maintain, easy to access, and that they have longevity in providing a good service and keeping the building watertight. Water ingress means internal finishes will deteriorate. There can be building sickness, encourage termites, rapid deterioration, and all these things lead to loss of tenants. Again, if you look inside the building at floors, the floors must be serviceable. They've got to be high maintenance, easy and safe, no tripping hazards. They've got to provide contrast to be trip-free, and have as long as life as what the service of that part of the building may be. So it may be a main foyer in a tall high-rise CBD building, or it could be a corridor in a part of a hospital that links emergency and particular types of wards. Now, if we consider the services of the building, there's a number of things that we should and must consider there as well to ensure there's continuity in the organisation or the tenant or the building providing the service that it's intended. So with building services, we need to look at things such as accessing the services for repair, for replacement. I know of cases where walls have had to be demolished and large excavations to get chillers out of basements for replacement at the end of a 20-year period. So that's important to look ahead in the design. A good preventative maintenance program, extremely important. The services need to be sympathetic to the environment, understand what location the cooling towers are going to be working. So is it a coastal, industrial? Is it heavily treed? Is it a high acidic environment? And with the service and the level of services that's going to be required. So operating theatres in a hospital, airports, shopping centres, domestic, residential, they all have their own needs and demands. Those priorities that we considered in earlier slides, they're all appropriate there to be considered in the use of facility and who's going to be using it. Furthermore, availability of parts. I myself have experience where fire panels, a integral part of the fire protection system. Having said that, fire panel use can be 15, 20 years, no problem. Once parts are not available after 5-6 years, it's very difficult for that particular piece of building plant to actually be reliable or confidently say that it's going to achieve what it should be in fire protection. Now, in maintaining a building, it's the same with anything. You get a new car, what does the service manual say? The handover and maintenance manuals are pretty much just that. They give a full description of all parts, maintenance requirements, how to service, any operational instructions, as-built drawings, and contact details in emergencies, fault details and different types of diagnostic. So they're extremely important documents to have when owning and operating a building. And this type of information should also assist with adapting a life cycle and maintenance routine as well for the building. Often the biggest problem with handover and maintenance manuals is the format, and the information isn't always quite usable. So soft copy format is extremely important now, and being able to get access to on a number of forms of different pieces of technology. There's a slow movement towards building information management, and the BIM, or Building Information Modelling and Management, is a simple process that during the design phase of a building and the coordination of information through computer-aided design and the components of all the engineering design comes together, and there's a lot more transparency with the architectural being meeting the needs of engineering, layout, and so the The real bonus of building information modelling is the consistency in all the documentation and the consistency in the language. All the designers and all the engineers and the contributors to the building and the design, including the builder, there's consistency in that language, and it's followed all the way through in the building. I suppose the negative is, and that's this is why it hasn't really been adopted in a large scale at the moment, is that it requires new software, new training, a new understanding, and that approach has to be done straight from the beginning, the concept stage, and followed all the way through to practical completion. Ideally, that from practical completion, then that same information modelling could be used then for building and facilities management. That would be the ideal process. But as I said, BIM is in its early phases in this country, and even in America. There's really only a number of cases where it's being used effectively. Okay, we're now at the end of topic 1, and it's a good opportunity now for you to read through the study guide on building maintenance management. Refer to the subject text, work through those workbook activities for this topic, and if you've got any questions, you can post them to the student forum or questions to the lecturer, or you can email me directly.